Okay, so hi Sandra, welcome.
Hi there. Sorry, I won't have my camera on today, but
All good,
happy to be
all good.
here.
Yeah, great. Feel free to jump in with any questions. I'll kind of make it so that it's easy to jump in if you want, and no pressure otherwise. So a little bit
Oh,
about me. Teacher and lead AI at DSST Public Schools. So DSST has slowly adopted, gone from pilots to the whole network, and what that means is developing framework, tools, and approach for students, staff, and community. Born and raised here in Colorado, went to CU Boulder, and then did Teach for America down in Georgia, where I met my wife, and went to Georgia State University for my master's. And so this is my 14th year as a teacher, school leader, sort of in the school building. Have a lot of range in education. So my undergrad was in political science and sociology. But when I started with TFA, I taught science. I had like a high ACT science score. So they said, we need science teachers, go teach science, while I earned my master's in math and science. And so I've taught middle school math and science, and then high school, actually mostly civics and psychology. My wife is also a math teacher, so a lot of different sets of experiences. I'll also send you this presentation in the chat right now, and so you can feel free to follow along. Whatever is easiest for you. Let me get that chat up real quick. Wonderful. All right. Let me double check my sharing settings so you can definitely access it. And this is a combination of really a couple of talks that show the different work that we've done along with mindsets and approaches. And so what I always start with is this question, which is, what if, instead of evaluating learning by measuring what we know, we also measure learning based on what we can create and its impact for our community? So the reason this really matters to me is, one thing I teach a lot of students is that knowing things is helpful but never sufficient, and that rather what we create, and more importantly the impact, is how we should more likely measure our contributions, and that aligning that to learning, there's a lot of power to that. So I'm just going to stop here. I think we've got a nice small group, and just get your thoughts. Like, when you look at that, what do you think? And Sandra, no pressure, right? If you need to be off mic, what do you think, Karen? What are your thoughts on that?
The first thing I think about is our provincial curriculum. We have something called core competencies,
Yeah,
and those are three different domains. So we have communication, thinking, and personal social. So measuring learning based on creating and impacting our community totally aligns with what we have under personal and social. It's about knowing yourself, your identity, and then how that connects with like social responsibility and place. So
I
yeah,
love that.
we're moving in the right direction where
Yes.
I'm living and
And
aligning it with curriculum.
so ours is a little different, and ours is more like portrait of a graduate.
Okay.
But really, when we piece out the portrait of a graduate, right, it's like, can they drive impact? We don't name it well enough, and it's not aligned well enough. But I agree, like, people are starting to be able to move these, and things like the portrait of a graduate is easy to update. And so, as a classroom teacher, understanding the context, like, I really look at this as like, this is not all or nothing. I'm not saying like, so many people are like, is this the time of vibe teaching or things like that? And like, I definitely believe that knowledge has value, but I do think its value is dropping, and creation is increasingly more value, and more importantly, impact. And so it's the idea of, how do we operate within the system that currently exists while also creating and imagining one that will better serve our young people for the future that is. One stat that I'm really latching onto right now is, I believe in the US, it's either in the US or Britain, and Britain, is 4 million Gen Zers who are not in education, employment, or training. when we start to think about why, the most likely scenario is that this oftentimes is a bridge to nowhere. Our young people are feeling unprepared for the world as it is and are giving up. And so how do we also know, like, we operate in a system and create a bridge to a new place that supports our young people and what they're doing? And so the way I position this with young people is I say knowledge is power is a lie. It's a well-intentioned lie. It's a really good lie. And it comes from people who want to empower, but it's actually disempowering. And that knowledge in action is power. And why this really matters is that taking action, especially in the age of AI, is the defining factor based on my hypothesis. And that is that agency and action will be the things rather than knowing. And we need to know to take action, but also taking action can help us know better. And so that is the idea when we think about it's not all or nothing. We need to position young people to take action. And what if, right? In order to have impact, we must actually do. And so I'll tell you a little bit about how we've done this. We recently did a collaborative experiment where at DSST, we've been focusing on partnering with industry professionals, especially in our STEM electives and STEM certificate courses. And so we have these different verticals of STEM certificates: entrepreneurship, bioscience, computer science, and more. And so throughout this process, civics and AP psychology have fallen into that. And so we partnered with Bridgeview IT, a local IT firm, and Tinman Kinetics, a local AI expert, along with EdSafe AI, to build an experiment. The tool we used was PlayLab. Additionally, PlayLab is more than a platform. It's design thinking for AI. And so we did that to try and drive the idea that through collaboration, we can create something that is meaningful and has authentic impact, right? Taking action. And so this is what we built. Students built something called VoteWise. VoteWise was a voter engagement app targeting users across Colorado during the 2020 election. This was student driven. So these are live links. Feel free to click on them. And these specific live links will take you to VoteWise. It'll take you to some press that covered it. And the reason that this is unique is we thought this experiment would likely be a failure. We were not extremely optimistic about our ability to build a technological solution in a low-code, no-code environment, a civics classroom. The way we did it is we started by asking students, well, first, actually, I'll walk you a bit through our curriculum. We teach students about power. We teach students about the tech. Then we teach students about the implications for human relationships. Specifically, when we teach about the tech, we partner with AIEDU mostly and others. And then when we teach about the implications for human relationships, we partner with the Rhythm Project, really amazing group. The reason we do this is we think that there's a lot of inherent challenges to introducing young people to AI, especially without a foundation of thinking about how do I make sure that I'm using this in a way that drives outcomes rather than allows AI to think for me. Additionally, so many young people, the main message that they're bombarded with is that AI is cheating. And so we want to help them say, like, absolutely, AI can be used to cheat better than anything maybe in the history of humanity, but it's actually the lowest hanging fruit and a very simplistic use case. There are so many other opportunities to create. And so students started then by building PlayLab bots around a problem in their life. Just like you said, Karen, they're thinking about their identity, the community, what is something they want to solve for. So all sorts of things. Students are solving for how to make recipes for their family. Students are solving for gun violence, how to address gun violence, thinking through how to research gun violence. Students are solving for immigration challenges, how to help family members navigate the complex immigration system. Students are solving for all sorts of problems in their lives. And the reason that this matters is this project was successful because it emerged out of student interest. It wasn't teacher driven. We responded to their interests and collaborated. So really consistently, students were building these bots, and a really popular bot was voter empowerment, especially students saying, I have family members who are eligible to vote, who know how to vote, but the overall process, or like want to vote and think they know how to vote, but then once they get into it, it's too overwhelming, right? All of the, get the ballot, understand the ballot, fill out the ballot, especially during presidential years, which, as we know, during presidential years, to drive turnout, people load the ballot full of partisan-based questions, meaning, there's abortion, there's drugs, there's criminal justice, and oftentimes really challengingly framed to drive voter turnout. The outcome of that is that it's harder to understand these really dense ballots. So the Colorado voter guide was about 122 pages. There were, one's 87, 100, some are 122. It's just massive amount of information, let alone, figuring out who to vote for president, in local elections, for judges. We could go on and on. And so what students decided they wanted to do was build a way for people to engage in multiple languages. A lot of their parents speak English, but have a native language that is other than English, or are more proficient in the other language. And so we wanted to include that as a feature rooted in student focus, student care. And so throughout this process, we continued to iterate, ask, and design. And I think in full transparency, this was by far the messiest teaching I've ever done, right? I think as a highly experienced teacher, I can run a super tight classroom. But what was really concerning for me was seeing the quality of student work that can come out of a structured chaos environment, or maybe organized chaos, not structured chaos. And so this became incredibly successful. We had over 10,000 site clicks, over 1,000 chats. I actually think it's more, but as we start to look through, we didn't want to overstate. It was a really high number. This includes getting an award from the Colorado Secretary of State, from having the Colorado Secretary of State come and meet our students and give them feedback. So as soon as we launched, we had the Secretary of State on the phone, hey, this is a big deal, AI in voting, we want to make sure it's right. So they worked with us to double check answers, and incredibly, it was very, very effective. So I'm just going to stop there for a moment and give you some time, Karen, I know that, project-based learning is a clear interest to you, and give you some time to talk through and identify what are you most interested in here?
The thing that pops out to me is the real world application. For students to actually see that something that they're passionate about and care about and work so hard on matters in the world. And I think that's what really ignites the passion for students, is to see whoa, I got this many clicks and this many chats and all these messages of okay, somebody out there actually cares about what I care about and wants to hear my voice and wants to see what I can produce. And then that's just going to be that domino effect that we want for students to be able to do that more and more and more with different things that they love, and to really evoke change.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And what you're talking about is so interesting, because a lot of students then were able to parlay that into leveraging this for other things.
Yeah.
Once they were proficient in Play Lab, they could go build all their own custom bots, and they're doing all sorts of things that are so far beyond cheating. And then additionally, students who are oh, I'm in a computer science class, I'm learning some code, I'm learning how to think about this, and now I can use this to create this thing, right? I can actually build a website that I fully own, that I don't have to pay for, because I know how to host it, I know the platform, and I can generate so much more code. Yeah. Additionally, I think, the thing that was and continues to be inspiring is the students who see themselves differently in the space. So great example is one young Latino female student, a specific statement was oh, I realized I could run a tech company. I could found a tech company. And in so many ways, what I talk about with students is, we launched a startup in the classroom that we just didn't monetize, right? That's really what happened. And so helping students see their position in this, as so many really successful tech leaders are like just people who are passionate in a problem and then have some level of expertise, and that AI allows us to lever that up so much faster and to collaborate. One of the biggest things, and we'll talk about this in a moment, is helping students see that it's not about just what they can build, but it's this value of collaborating in teams with AI. That's where the magic is. There's a recent paper out of Wharton's generative AI labs, the Molochs, talking about this. They tested this empirically and identified that working with AI can really level someone up to like working on a team, but teams working with AI are more likely to produce excellence. Like that's what happened here. We did this again in semester 2, and we had some really good stuff, but it wasn't as good as VoteWise. And so like there's also that other side of, there's that other risk, right? Is like being willing to fail. We invited students on this adventure of saying, and actually we'll go through a couple of these, of saying like, this may be a total mess and we may completely fail. What was counterintuitive about that is that was really exciting for students, right? So often we come to students and we say, hey, here are the parameters of the project. This is what you need to do. And if you do those things, here's the grade you get. While there is some level of safety in that because students know what to do, it also can feel like they're not being trusted, that they're being told exactly what to do. And so this opportunity to invite them into risk-taking, academic risk-taking, was really powerful. And so I think you can see like, I'm capable of making a change and can have an impact. Anyone who's eligible can vote. Like this was such a common concept. You know, even students saying like, I just care about so much more than I knew I care about. And I learned how to create something without having a guide to show me how to do it. That one for me is the thing that matters most for the age of AI. Is as a teacher, I feel like we lie to kids so regularly with the like, if you just do what you're told, and then you get the grade and then life always works out. Like it's just not true. And I think we all know that as we get older. And so how do we position young people to be more dynamic in these challenging spaces and build the confidence that they can create in ambiguous spaces? So I'm going to break down here. I've got some links put in, but this is really essentially the focus. And the focus is where a lot of people, I think, miss building a great project with students is they don't start with a student-centered problem. So I presented this several times and had several teachers and they're like, oh, I have this problem I want students to work on. And my first statement is like, oh, that sounds really cool. That sounds like your problem. I don't know that students are going to be as excited about it. And so like if we can co-create a problem with students, that's great. And really inviting students into finding a problem they care about and helping them address it, in my opinion, is one of the really sort of like magic sauces that go into great projects with kids, especially leveraging AI to create. Now, of course, these are seniors in high school. So I do think scaffolding down maybe a couple of options around problems, like putting more guidelines and guardrails for 8th grade plus. I would take a different approach for below 8th grade based on using the tools. Then we went to solution. So the solution was, and what I love about PlayLab is the ability to quickly iterate using design principles. Got a lot of design principles built in, and people can just very quickly iterate over and over to figure out how can I actually build something that matters. And we continuously kind of ask students, a lot of students are in the I'm done mindset. It's like, would someone pay you for this? And if the answer is no, you're nowhere near done. And the reason this matters is in so much of what we see as the skills for success in the age of AI is the ability to constantly adapt and iterate as the technology and applications change. We've really tried to help students see that while software is the first thing that is disrupted, there's actually probably a bunch of sectors that are going to be disrupted, especially science and healthcare science. I don't want to say healthcare itself, but like the science of healthcare is very likely to be disrupted. And then how we care, but we'll still need tons of people, hopefully in healthcare. And then we went back into a problem. The problem is we had some really cool tools, no one was using them. And so that's where students also got really excited. It's like thinking, how do we actually deploy something into the hands of people? That's where we got to build an app, leverage our local experts, and get this on. We thought a lot about a downloadable app. We thought about the app store, but we landed on a web app, just a mobile-friendly web app that people could operate and use easily. The coding was easy. There were a lot of opportunities there. And then collect feedback, reflect, analyze, and respond, and iterate. Students updated their bots and updated their code hundreds of times. We went through multiple UX, UI very quickly, and this actually was only in about 3 weeks. The other stuff that I told you about, the building the framing and power, all of those layers we taught before, and that was a part of the civics curriculum. But the actual building of the app was about 3 weeks, and AI makes that possible. That's a really cool thing, and that we're super focused on human-centered AI leverage because AI can allow us to iterate so fast. So when we think about this, some of the mindsets that we're using here, it's like really focusing on student passion and earned expertise. We also do this with adults. So as a result of a lot of this work, we have a lot of students who are able to train the other adults. So educators, our curriculum leaders, we have students who train curriculum leaders on PlayLab, facilitated by myself, right? So it's adults and curriculum leaders, but that intergenerational work. And the idea is we want to be able to use address the problem of limited time and resources by leveraging student AI and like being able to get into deep work faster. The real magic here is being in that deep work faster and being able to drive impact on community. If I really think about like the thing that helped us the most is allowing us to collaborate and drive improvement. I'm going to stop there and give you some time. When you're thinking like, what questions do you have? What are you most curious about?
I love what you shared about the students teaching adults.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part, is that we as adults can't catch up. We don't have the brain space or time necessarily to dive in as these students would, and that's just giving them agency and ownership and being able to collaborate in a different way. My question on the previous slide that you shared, when the students got into writing the code or the bots, were they working independently on their own apps or were they collaborating to create those?
Yeah, so we've actually done both. The first time we did it, students were on their own apps. So, and that was first. That was last semester. This semester we've done it both ways. So the first time students actually they played with building bots, over like 2 days alone, and then they worked in teams. So the bots, but that semester one they built their bots all alone. Then we got into teams.
Same
Semester
kids?
two, no, different kids.
Okay.
Kids. I switch it the semester.
Okay.
Semester two, they learned on their own bot like very quickly. Then they built in teams. Then we built a group experience. Then they actually built their own. And then the reason they built their own, they built their own on Claude. Because we were trying to do these like storytelling experiences. There's some really cool ones, but Claude is expensive. It's one of the reasons that it was a limiting factor. And PlayLab will have this, but Claude's ability to output the artifact right there, to actually build a web page or an experience in the artifact simulation right there, was really powerful for us. So I do think PlayLab will integrate that at some point, but it's a really great differentiator for Claude. And so that's why we haven't deployed them at the same level because of the cost and the restrictions with Claude. But still incredibly powerful student learning experiences on that one. Okay, so last thing, the thing that I try to really drive home is like, it's not AI driven. I cringe every time I see AI driven, and I love personalization, but I'm really skeptical of students learning from AI consistently and at high levels. Instead, we are like student-centered AI leveraged. It's driven by the students, their expertise. This is a place that I think not enough people are thinking about, as they are thinking so much about how does AI teach kids for efficiency versus how do we identify that young people bring expertise to the table that they want to engage in and share with their community. And so positioning them as experts to leverage AI is something that I think is really powerful. Any other questions? Any other thoughts?
Hey, I'll chime in here. Sorry, I
Yeah, hey,
have
Sandra.
noise. I also have noisy dogs that are
All good. All good.
they're kind of not good to have on here. But um so I am not a classroom teacher K-12 any longer,
Yeah.
but I do
Right.
teach adjunct for Indiana Wesleyan, and then I started in the fall. We started a master's in artificial intelligence,
Oh,
and
cool.
so
Yeah.
I do this with the students.
Yeah.
But also I did this last year with a high school group, something similar. We only had 4 days, so it was
Yeah.
really fast.
Yep.
But I just wanted to affirm what you're working on, and I love like hearing what other people, how they're doing it, like how do you
Yeah.
get it to actually work, and so
Yep.
a lot of similar findings. And
Love
the
it.
one that fascinates me the most is how like kids will be so much more comfortable with it, right? Than adults. But then as soon like the teachers are like, well, we can't have the students do this,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
So
Yep.
I did have a couple questions that I thought maybe you would have some insights
Yeah.
into. But one is you know I hear a lot of teachers say, well, I'm having them document all of their work in AI and they have to turn things in. And I
Yeah.
get that. But if you've ever done a project like this, like there is no time to document everything that
Yeah.
you're doing.
Totally.
So have you ever had like, have you thought that through? Is
Yeah.
there a balance? Is there a time when like documentation? Because I have doctoral mentees, like
Yeah.
they're working on their stuff, and it's an applied doctoral project. So they're working on a real solution. And,
Yep.
right now the institution is saying like, no AI. And I'm like, this
Oh,
is for
they're
a
crazy. Yeah.
doctorate in business administration. I'm like, you should be using AI and you should be talking about how you used AI.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Right. Not for like the stuff that you should do on your own, but like that you can use AI. So again, if they're encumbered, maybe is a good word,
Yep.
by having to
Yeah.
document like the process rather than like what you just did is explained, like if they could present how they used AI versus document.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry, they're barking
No,
at
you nailed it. Okay, so this is what we've done. There's two things. Really importantly, I gave no grades for this project. Students gave each other grades. And I also left out, like, of course, also a lot of details. We broke them into agile groups. And so they had really clear roles, and then they graded each other. And so there was a ton of value in having them grade each other throughout. And we did have them document some things. So in our second attempt at it, we used Trello boards. And so then like they had the Trello board artifact, they had the prompting artifact, they had the bot that they built, and then like the UI UX. And in a lot of these prompts, like in order to address something, there is so much research and citation that has to be done to effectively get the bot to help somebody with a thing that we didn't go super deep into like documenting. I have seen, oh, I'm gonna blank on it. There's a really great tool that I'm really curious about. Oh, dang it, I can't remember it. But here's the whole idea: is it's almost like Trello, but people record their reflections and it's really quick. It's like social media meets project-based learning. Unruler. It's called Unruler. UNRLR. We haven't used it extensively, but I've met with them a couple times. And I really like the idea for exactly what you're talking about, Sandra, is the challenge of authentically documenting all of that work. And so I think it's a gap. The way we addressed it was peer grading. I mean, it's so authentic. They grade each other way harder than I ever thought to grade them. They really do. They get mad when people don't carry their weight. And the data show that in the grades. The next thing is it puts more accountability on students to be like, hey, you're doing this thing. It's holding me back. Like, we need to do it. And like, you know, we all deal with this at work, right? Like, we all know that we take on group projects with people, and like some people are the workhorses and some people are the show horses. And I do think there's a ton of value to helping students navigate those dynamics, which then when they're doing really authentic peer grading, that's a challenge. I used, to be clear, once you do that, we did use Google Forms and like had to do quite a bit of, I think it was macros coding, to get it to talk to us and give us like the outputs as well enough. But yeah, that's how we approached it. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna wrap. It's my daughter's birthday, so hard stop today. But really wonderful to meet y'all. And yeah, please, I think you have my email. Do you guys have my email? I'll send it to you.
I found you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, great. Please do. I'd be more than happy to connect and chat with you, and love to hear about your own work that you do.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Zach. I love that you're
Thanks
thinking.
so much.
You did a great job.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Sandra.
Yeah.
Bye.